Amy, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing so well. Before we jump in, can you share a little bit about your experience and how you got to where you are today with founder and mental fitness expert and executive coach and a keynote speaker? I mean, I could go on, but tell me, how did this all begin?
How long do we have? No.
30 minutes.
Um, we might be talking about that instead of doing this mental fitness
Sure,
stuff. No.
sure, sure.
So I spent 16 years in corporate America, and my last role was at Google. And I had always had this dream to go travel, to go pursue my dreams, get back. And I went through a long self-help journey. I will say that I had fertility issues. We had our embryos frozen, and then a year later found out the tank lost temperature control.
Oh my
And
gosh, that happened to my sister.
it might be in the same place. It was,
Whoa,
there was,
what?
there were 200 families involved, and they basically told us, we don't have the viability till you plan on using it. And that was the catalyst, because we had plans to go do this travel thing and see the world, but this was our backup plan, right? To have a family while we do that. And so that was the catalyst of me doing a lot of self work, self discovery. And that's when I came upon mental fitness. And it was life changing. And I started realizing I want to do this work for other people, because you know what? Life throws crap at us all the time. And how can we have that mental fitness, the resiliency to handle whatever life throws us? So that was the beginning of my new path and my journey into what I do today.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm also just blown away by the synchronicity right now. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. That is, as someone that was witness to someone that happened to as well, that's, if people on the call aren't aware, just getting to the frozen stage is a very invasive process on the
Yeah.
human body and takes a lot of work and
Yeah.
resources and energy, physically, mentally, spiritually. And then for that to
Yeah.
happen is tragic.
Yes, 100%. The and this is what mental fitness is all about. We're probably getting ahead, but there's always a gift and opportunity in every situation and circumstance, even if it's not obvious at the time. And so at the time, it was not obvious with the gift. I was like, what the crap, right? Um, but but now looking back, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today and living this life of purpose and passion, and doing the work that really excites me. And mental fitness is a big piece of that. And so, uh, yeah, that's the gift. And then the other piece is we did end up choosing we're going to go travel. So we left our jobs and we decided it was January of 2020, by the way, when we
Oh
did.
my God, Amy.
So in January of 2020, we decided I'm going to leave my job at Google. We're going to take a one-way flight, and we're going to go volunteer in Ghana at a breast cancer nonprofit and then travel the world. And as you probably remember, that little thing called COVID came along.
Hmm.
We ended borders there closed. So what was supposed to only be 2 or 3 months ended up being 7 months. But it was, again, another gift.
Yeah.
That's where I grew my business, because at first I'm like, well, I'm going to be traveling, so I don't really want to be growing a business. I want to focus on traveling. So 7 months stuck there. It's where I discovered my voice. I started writing more. I started sharing more vulnerably, and that's the start of my business. And people ask me to start speaking about things.
Mm.
And then when borders finally reopened, my husband and I started living, working nomadically. I won't call it travel, because most
Mm.
places still didn't want Americans in their country. So we had to figure out, like, where would they let us in? And then we would go there. And a year into traveling, living nomadically, I got pregnant at the age of 40, naturally,
Mm.
while overseas.
Mm.
And that's what brought us back. And so now I have a beautiful almost 2.5 year old. I'm 6 months pregnant with the next one.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Natural also.
Yeah.
And we did try those embryos. They were all not feasible. So, um, but yeah, and so that's part of what mental fitness is all about, is what's the gift or opportunity,
What's the
uh,
gift or opportunity? And
even if it's not obvious in the moment.
hmm I'm
Yeah.
definitely connecting you with my sister because she also then got pregnant the old-fashioned way after deciding not to like pursue any legal charges or anything like that with a mistake. And she also, and then it was another surprise gift that
Yeah.
this other child, like appeared.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny, right? How life works out. So
Yeah, we can't predict how it's going to happen. Well, this was going to be an intro of just being like, this is Amy, and now we're like in it. So I'm here if you need me.
okay.
Thank you for connecting and sharing so radically vulnerably.
Yeah.
I appreciate you already, and I'm just gonna mute myself, but you just let me know
Okay.
if there's anything I can do, okay?
Okay. Awesome. All right. So now that we went through that wonderful conversation, I'm going to probably cut this presentation. I'm going to skip some slides, but I'm really excited to be here as you heard about my story to share about mental fitness because it is something that is near and dear to my heart. It helped me get through some of the toughest times in my life, and it is something that can truly be instrumental in many of our lives. And so I want to start with this question of what is mental fitness anyway, right? And mental fitness is essentially your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive mindset rather than getting upset and stressed. And if we were to use a physical analogy to bring this to life, if you have average physical fitness, then you could probably climb the hills of life, the small hills of life with relative ease. But if we were to put a big mountain in front of you, you'd probably be out of breath, your legs would be shaking, armpits would be sweating, and it would be hard for you to physically handle. And the same thing is happening for many of us with what is going on in the world today with, a few years ago, the pandemic, and now with politics, race relations, and more. And most of us are of average mental fitness, which means you could handle the hills of life with relative ease, but with the big mountain of challenges, it's harder for us to handle. And using this analogy, what you begin to see is possibility. This thing that's getting me all stressed out, I'm not really able to handle it. Maybe I don't need to be blaming this thing because it's just a mountain. And maybe the question that I can be asking is, well, how do I strengthen my mental fitness so that I can get over this mountain? And imagine when you get to the other side of the mountain, and I promise you, we will all get over to the other side of the mountain. Then you'll look back and say, hey, I got over that mountain. And for the rest of your life, things will feel doable, right? You'll get all these mid-level hills, small hills, and you'll say, you know what? I got past that big mountain. I'm going to be able to climb these other mountains. I also want to be clear, mental fitness is not about it's not the same as mental health. A lot of people hear the word mental fitness and they assume it's mental health, and it is not the same thing. It comes from the perspective of being proactive, right? If you were to run a marathon, you would want to get physically fit ahead of time so you could run the 26.2 miles. And the same thing is true with life. We know life throws us all kinds of things. And so how can you build your capacity, your mental fitness, so that you can handle whatever comes your way in life? And that's what mental fitness is all about. It is about becoming 1% better today than I was yesterday. And if we were to look at why mental fitness matters, it starts with your thoughts. So I want you to take a wild guess. How many thoughts do you think you have per day? How many thoughts do you think you have per day? And the answer to that question is 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day. So you have 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day. What percentage do you think are negative? What percentage of those thoughts do you think are negative? The answer is 80%. 80% of those thoughts are negative. So you've got 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day, 80% are negative. What percentage do you think are repeated day after day after day? What percentage of those 12 to 60,000 thoughts do you think are repeated? And the answer to that is 95%. So you've got 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day, 80% are negative, 95% are repeated day after day after day. And the thing is, what consumes your mind consumes your life. That is why mental fitness matters so much. right? It's about bringing all that's unconscious, all those negative repeated thoughts that are happening unconsciously into the conscious so you can be at choice and more intentional. And so what I'm planning to cover for the rest of today is background on the research, the 3 core mental fitness muscles, and 3 steps to shifting, right? So mental fitness, as we're talking about it today, was conducted, it's based on research conducted by a man named Shirzad Shamim. And I'm not going to get into the details since we don't have that much time. If you want the details of his research, he's got this book out. It's called Positive Intelligence. It's in 20 different languages and it's available on Amazon. What I do want to bring up is that what he found is there are 3 core muscles at the root of mental fitness. And those things are saboteur interceptor, sage, and self-command muscle. And if you're thinking, what the heck are those? I'm glad you asked, because that's what we're going to delve into. And before we do, I want to use an analogy, and it's called Jedi mind training. So I hope there are some Star Wars fans out there. And mental fitness has become lovingly called Jedi mind training. And why is this? It's because we have these characters in our heads, right? There's this Darth Vader that messes with us, and then there's this inner Jedi, this inner knowing. And there's these 2 characters always at battle with each other in our heads. And so essentially, the saboteur is that Darth Vader, and the sage is that inner Jedi. And that's why 2 of the 3 muscles, one is the saboteur interceptor. How do we intercept that Darth Vader from messing with us? And the sage is how do we strengthen that inner Jedi? So let's start with the saboteur interceptor first. And we can't talk about saboteurs without talking about survival, because survival is our #1 priority. And what did we have to survive from back in our cave days? It was this, the saber-toothed tiger. So back during our cave days, we needed to know when this thing comes, do I fight, flight, or freeze? We also needed to be liked and accepted into the tribe, and that was for survival reasons too. Because if you think about it, are you more likely to survive when this thing comes if you're alone or part of a tribe? And so even though our minds have evolved tremendously since cave days, survival is still the #1 priority. And we are still assessing, am I fitting in? If I speak up, could that get me rejected? Am I worthy of being accepted into this tribe? And it is all because of survival. We're also constantly looking and assessing and judging others for survival too, because I'm looking at you. Are you my friend or enemy? When this tiger comes, are you going to throw me to the tiger or are you going to fight it with me? Right? And so we're constantly assessing and judging ourselves, other people, situations. And that's why the #1 saboteur that all of us have is the judge. I promise you, you have it, I have it, our friends, families, they all have it. And it's okay, right? We all have it. It's all about bringing that awareness out though. And the judge has 3 modalities in which it judges. The first is judgment of self, also known as the inner critic. It is the thing saying, oh my gosh, you did not get that promotion. You're a complete failure, right? It is constantly berating you for past imperfections and future failures, making you stressed all the time. The second modality of the judge is judgment of others. It is the one looking at, oh, you're too short, you're too tall, you're too slow, you're not fast enough. And it is constantly assessing and judging what is wrong in others. And the third modality is something that many of us aren't even aware that we're doing, but it is the thing that's looking at all the situations and circumstances in life telling you, you cannot be happy until. You cannot be happy until you have a certain job title, until you retire, until you have all the things on your to-do list done, right? And it is telling you that you cannot be happy. And so the judge has a couple of friends. The research shows there's 9 different friends of the judge. And those friends are the avoider, controller, hyperachiever, hyper-rational, hyper-vigilant, pleaser, restless, stickler, and victim. What a cast of characters. And if you're looking at this list and thinking, my boss definitely has the controller, they're always trying to micromanage me. Or my partner has the stickler, drives me up the wall. I encourage you not to be focused on other people's saboteurs, but rather to focus on who are your saboteurs, right? How do I mess with myself? How do my saboteurs cause my own stress? And also not feel bad about it, because we all have saboteurs that mess with us. And so how do you figure out which are your top saboteurs? There is an assessment you can take, and I will share a link with you at the end of this so that you could take the assessment. I'm not going to share it now because then everybody would be taking the assessment. But you take the assessment and it gives you results. And what you see on here are my results. And so my top saboteurs are the pleaser, controller, and hyperachiever, right? And so if you click into each one of these, you'll get details. And you can dig in further into your saboteurs. So what you see here is a description of one of my top saboteurs, the hyperachiever. And you might be thinking, well, isn't being an achiever a good thing? Why would achieving be a bad thing? And the way to think about these saboteurs are they use your strength in a way that doesn't serve you, right? It's you have a lot of strengths and they use your strengths in a way that don't serve you. For example, a knife is a single tool, but a knife could be used by a surgeon to save someone's life, or it could be used by murder to kill someone. One tool, two uses. And so people who have hyperachiever, for example, lots of strengths, very driven, goal-oriented, self-directed, can be inspiring to self and others, can achieve full potential, right? Inner directed, lots of strengths. But when the saboteur uses those strengths in a way that doesn't serve you, what it does is it will tell you you will be happy when you get to the top of the mountain. And if you're anything like me, were you really happy when you got to the top of the mountain? No. If you were like me, you're looking up at the mountain and saying, oh, I'm almost at the top. I'm going to get there soon. And you're already looking for the next mountain. And you end up climbing mountain after mountain after mountain, and it just leads to burnout. And so that's how the saboteurs mess with us, right? They tell us these lies, and they tell us that we'll be happy when, and they use our strengths in a way that don't serve us. And so the way to use this assessment and the results is it's almost like creating this wanted poster, right? Taking all those unconscious thoughts, the negative thoughts, the repeated thoughts, and bringing it to the surface so that you could catch your saboteur faster. And that's what the first muscle is all about, the saboteur interceptor. It's building that awareness, recognizing your own saboteurs, and being able to intercept them when they try to mess with you, right? It's all about becoming aware of what are the lies that it tells you. And mine always tells me when you get to the top of the mountain, you'll be happy, right? And so we're going to jump into the second muscle, which is the sage. And in order to talk about the sage, I want to bring up this part of the research, which essentially shows that the saboteurs and sage live on different sides of the brain. And there are 2 chapters in the book about this. And what I want you to be aware of is that there are 2 parts of your brain that are wired very differently. And when they get activated, they produce very different emotions, thoughts, attitudes, right? And if you want all the research, you can pick up the book for that. But I just want you to be aware that it's 2 different sides and different emotions and thoughts and attitudes. And so the thriving brain, the sage perspective, comes from this perspective, which is what I mentioned earlier. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into gift or opportunity. Every outcome or circumstance can be turned into gift or opportunity. By the way, everything that is happening in the world today, right? The wars, race relations, politics, everything. And if your saboteur is activated right now, it is probably saying, oh my gosh, what she's saying is dangerous. This is naive. Get her off the stage. But if your sage is activated right now, it knows this is actually how the world works. And so to bring this story to life, I want to tell you a story, and it's one of my favorite stories. It's called The Stallion Story. So there's an old farmer that lives on a farm with his teenage son. And he has this beautiful stallion. He enters into a county fair, and his stallion wins first prize. The neighbors come, they celebrate with him, and he calmly looks at them and says, who knows what is good? Who knows what is bad? They're puzzled, they go away. And the next week, some thieves who heard about the stallion's increased value come and steal the horse. The neighbors come, they commiserate. He calmly again looks at them. Who knows what is good? Who knows what is bad? And they're all puzzled again. They go away. And several days later, the spirited stallion escapes from the thieves, befriends a few wild mares along the way, and makes his way home. And the neighbors come, they are excited, congratulate the farmer, and he again looks at them and says, who knows what is good? Who knows what is bad? A few weeks later, the farmer's son is riding the stallion. He's thrown off, breaks one of his legs, fractures it, and the neighbors come, they commiserate. And again, farmer looks at them and says, who knows what is good? Who knows what is bad? And at this point, the neighbors think the farmer is losing his mind. So they go away. And the following week, the army is marching through the village, conscripting eligible young men for war that's just broke out. And the old farmer's son is spared due to his fractured leg. And the neighbors no longer come to commiserate or to celebrate, right? Because they already know what he's going to say. And I want everyone on here to say it with me. Who knows what is good? Who knows what is bad? Right? And this story has the potential to change everything. If there's nothing that you remember from today, remembering this story can change everything for you. And I often get this question, well, what is true? Saboteur, this is bad, or sage, this is a gift? And my answer to you is whichever you believe becomes true. There's a saying that goes, where focus goes, energy flows. If you left here deciding you're going to go buy a red Jeep, you're going to go outside, and what are you going to see a lot of? Red Jeeps. And is it because everybody decided they wanted red Jeeps? No, it's because that's where your focus is, right? So if we believe everything is bad, we're going to see more bad. If we believe everything is a gift, we'll see more gifts. Where our focus goes, energy flows. And so that is the sage perspective. And so I want to jump into the last muscle, which is the self-command muscle. And the self-command muscle, in order to go into this, I want to pose this question of, are you in control of your own mind? Do you believe that you are in control of your own mind? And I want to look at everyone there that is out there and say, you are not in control of your own mind. Because if you are in control of your own mind, would you command your mind to wake you up at 3 a.m, worrying about something that you don't have control over? Would you be commanding your mind to be berating yourself all the time? No, right? These aren't things that we would be choosing. So if we're not choosing it, who is? And it's because our mind's running the show, and too often it's doing it from saboteur mode. And so this third muscle is all about, when I'm in saboteur mode, how do I shift into sage? How do I shift into sage? Because it's hard when you're in that saboteur mode to be like, what's the gift or opportunity, right? So how this works is essentially there's something called a PQ rep. It stands for positive intelligence quotient. So you have PQ, EQ is emotional intelligence quotient, right? IQ. And so this is your mental fitness quotient. And essentially, it's 10 seconds of doing it. So if I were to want to build my bicep muscle, what would I do? I'd pick up a dumbbell. Here, that's 1 curl, 2 curls, right? That's 2 reps. And so 1 PQ rep is 10 seconds. And I want to show you how to do that. So we'll practice together. And you keep your eyes open or you could close them. So I want everyone to take your fingertips and rub them together with such attention. You can feel your fingertip ridges. Notice all the sensations of touch. So that was about 10 seconds. And if I were to have your head in an MRI machine right now, what we would see is that ever so slightly quieted the side your saboteurs live in, and ever so slightly activated your sage, right? Pretty cool. And that was just 10 seconds. So it's like doing 1 dumbbell rep. I'm not going to get swole doing 1 dumbbell rep. And not everything will change by doing 1 PQ rep. But imagine if you practice it and you did it consistently and you built those muscles, right? There are lots of different ways to do PQ reps. We're not going to have time to go into all those ways. I typically teach this over a span of 6 weeks. There's a boot camp that I teach. So what we're just going to do one, but know that there are lots of different ways. And the whole idea is figuring out which one resonates most with you. Okay. And so if you're into mindfulness, that's great. You can think of PQ reps as a form of, or meditation as a form of PQ repping. Okay. So there you have it. Those are the 3 muscles. You have the saboteur interceptor, you have the sage, you have the self-command muscle, right? And if you want to put it all together, I'm going to put it together in a 3-step process, because it's like, okay, great, I have these 3 muscles. What am I going to do with it? So we're going to put it together into an operating system. So first step is notice and stop. Anytime you are noticing emotions like anger, or frustration, or stress, you are in saboteur mode. So just stop. Doesn't matter what is happening in the world, just stop. Okay. And you can even name your saboteur to lighten it. So for example, I call my hypervigilant saboteur Miss Worrywart. So when Miss Worrywart shows up, I go, oh, there you are, Miss Worrywart, and I stop. Okay. And then step 2 is to shift your awareness, doing the PQ reps. We did the finger one. There are lots of different ones, but do that until you feel yourself shift. And step 3 is activate your sage. Activate your sage. Now you can pose the question of, how do I generate a gift or opportunity? How do I generate a gift or opportunity? What might the gift or opportunity be here? Okay. And so those are the 3 steps, essentially. Notice and stop, shift your awareness, activate your sage. And I want you to think of today as the equivalent of watching a how-to video, right? You watch the how-to video, now it's actually time to go to the gym and do the practices. So my question for you is, how might having stronger mental fitness support you and your teams to thrive? Right? How can having stronger mental fitness support you and your team to thrive? And so my invitation to you is, let's keep strengthening our mental fitness muscles. Here's the link for the saboteur assessment, so you can get to know your saboteurs intimately well, right? And that's that first muscle, the saboteur interceptor. So it's positiveintelligence.com/assessments. And then step 2, email me, and I have a free workbook for you. And you can ask me how you can continue building your mental fitness. And remember, make yourself a priority, because at the end of the day, you are your longest commitment. So how committed are you to yourself? And with that, I'm going to pause. You can feel free, connect with me on LinkedIn, or email me, and I'd love to chat more. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy. That was so wonderful. You were inside my head for that whole talk. My saboteur I called vicious gerbil, because it gets spins around on a hamster wheel all over
Yeah.
again. So I'm gonna try to activate my swole sage.
Yeah.
I gotta do this. Yeah. Thank you so much,
So
Amy.
thank
Please come back.
you.
That was
Thank
absolutely
you. I
so
will.
powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Anytime.